Hi, it's Trevor again. This is the third part in the series of short messages that I've prepared for you. We've looked at how God provides when we work. We've looked at how the things that He blesses with us with we are in custodianship for a season. And now I want to look at what we have to do. What is our responsibility? What do we have to do with these things? The first part of that is found in Matthew chapter 25, where Jesus tells a strange story about a rich man who shared out his property in varying degrees amongst his team, his staff, his servants, it says. He was going away for a season, and so he divvied up his resources to them. And when he returned, each of them had multiplied his assets in accordance with what they'd been given. Except that is for one man who just preserved what he had. He'd buried it, he'd kept it safe, and he brought it back when the master returned. Matthew 25:26 says this. His master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant. You knew that I harvest where I've not sown and gather where I've not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest." As a bare minimum, of course. And it begs the question, what am I doing with the blessings of heaven's resources that God has given me? I suspect very much how much I have received depends on how much I can be trusted to multiply. You see, remember God's original plan for Adam was that he increased the blessing that God had given him. That is God's plan for all of us. We are blessed to be a blessing, to see increase and to pass it on to others. If you want to see increase in your life, then act honourably and trustworthy with all that God has given you. Not just money or assets, but also your time, your skills, and your ability. Proverbs 6 addresses three areas of how we become good stewards or good custodians of what He's given us. And the first 5 verses of that chapter talk about not getting yourself trapped in debt or being tied into a situation which you don't have financial control over, where you are indebted to somebody else. We need to free ourselves from debt, because if we're not free, then how can we be free to give to God and to others adequately? That doesn't mean to say that you don't borrow money. My definition of debt is you're being in a position where you cannot repay. But we need to be in control and we need to be free of that situation to be able to bless others and God accordingly. Similarly, in verses 6 to 11 of that chapter, we need to be free to serve. We are called to work. We are called to use the time we have productively. And so the encouragement is to work, not to waste it, not to waste the time and the energy that we have. And finally, verses 12 through to 19, it talks about building up and not pulling down. With all that we have, we are called to build it up. People often refer to this passage as being a good steward, but I like to think of it as something far more than that. It's being a multiplier of all that we have. I will talk in another video about giving our assets away, about being generous, but before I do that, we have to learn how to be wise with what we have in order that when we give in a right place, and then when we keep or consume, that we are doing it in the right way. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 illustrates this well. It says, 2 Corinthians 9:10, it says, "He who supplies the seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply," there it is again, "your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness." In essence, when a harvest is brought in, a decision has to be made over how much seed should be kept for sowing next year. And once that is taken out, once that has been done first, the rest is then available for eating, sharing, celebrating, whatever we will. It all looks the same, but if we eat it all this year, then we starve next year. If we hold back all of the grain that we've harvested this year, we starve anyway. The same common sense has to be applied to all of our resources, trusting that God will multiply our seed when we act righteously and generously. Being a good steward or good multiplier is simply that, acting righteously and generously. knowing when to sow, when to eat, when to give things away, and when to hold back, knowing that at the end of the day we are called to be multipliers of all of the blessings of heaven.